I was born into silence and darkness. The world I lived in had no sound, no sight, only the faint vibrations of life. Many saw that as the end of possibility, but I came to realize it was only the beginning of awakening. The greatest tragedy is not blindness, but the inability to see beyond our limitations. When I learned my first word, water, the world came alive within me. In that single moment, I understood something profound, that no matter how dark your circumstances are, there's always a light within waiting to be touched. People often ask, Helen, how did you endure the isolation? My answer is simple, by turning inward. I realized that my spirit could not be confined by what I lacked. It could only be defined by what I chose to believe. Each obstacle I faced taught me a new form of language, not of words, but of strength. When life blocks one sense, it awakens another. The loss of sight opened the vision of my soul. The absence of sound taught me to listen to my heart. You may not face the same darkness, but every one of us knows adversity. Perhaps yours is failure, heartbreak, loss, or fear. Whatever it is, remember, the only true disability is the refusal to see your own power. I did not just learn to communicate, I learned to connect, to feel life in its fullness, not through my eyes or ears, but through spirit. So when life blindsides you and the silence becomes unbearable, remember, you can rise, not in spite of your challenges, but because of them. Every person who has suffered deeply has two choices: surrender to pain or transform it into purpose. I chose the latter, and so can you. Your challenges are not curses. They are invitations. Invitations to discover strength you never knew you had. When the world goes dark, that's when the light inside you finally becomes visible. Rise and let the world see you shine. When I came into this world, I could not hear, I could not see, I could not speak. The silence and the darkness surrounded me like a prison, and for years I did not know what life truly was. But one day, a hand reached into my world, the hand of my teacher, Anne Sullivan. She brought light into my darkness, not through my eyes, but through my understanding. She helped me discover that even without sight or sound, I could still touch the beauty of the world. The first time I understood the word water, it was as if life itself had been poured into me. The cool flow across my fingers awakened something deep inside. The realization that I was not lost, only waiting to be found. From that moment, I knew that every obstacle we face hides a hidden gift. My world expanded, not because my senses returned, but because I chose to believe that I could rise beyond my limitations. So often, people look at their struggles and see only what they lack. They forget to see what they've been given. Adversity can close doors, yes, but it can also open new worlds if you are willing to walk through them with faith. There were nights when I wanted to give up, when I felt alone and misunderstood. But I reminded myself, darkness is not the absence of light. It is the opportunity for light to be discovered. You do not have to be able to see to have vision. You do not have to hear to feel truth. What matters is not what you have lost, but what you do with what remains. If I had chosen bitterness, I would have remained trapped in that silent world. Instead, I chose gratitude. Gratitude for the gift of mind, of love, of imagination. Adversity taught me that courage is born not from what is easy, but from what seems impossible. And when you learn to rise from within, no one and nothing can take that power away from you. So if your world feels dark, if life has taken something precious from you, rise anyway. Do not let your limitations define you. Let them refine you. For every shadow only proves that there is a light nearby. Rise, not because life is easy, but because you are unbreakable. When I was a child, I lived in a world without sound or sight. There were no voices, no faces, only sensations and shadows. People moved around me, spoke around me, but their words were locked away, unreachable. I could feel the warmth of the sun, but not see its glow. I could touch the hand of my mother, but not hear her love. It was as though I stood on one side of a vast glass wall, looking out but unable to connect. Many thought my world was silent, but inside there was a storm, the desperate ache to understand, to express, to be. Then one day my teacher, Anne Sullivan, entered my world. She took my hand and began to spell words into my palm. At first, I did not understand, but when she placed my hand under a stream of cool water and spelled W-A-T-E-R, something inside me broke open. I realized that everything had a name, that this beautiful, intricate world could be touched, and through touch, understood. That moment was my awakening. It was as if the entire universe had been waiting for me to open my hand. From that day, I learned something profound. Adversity is not the end of life. It is the beginning of a deeper one. We all face moments when our world goes dark, when the things we took for granted are suddenly gone. When the noise of the world fades, and we are left with only ourselves. But in that darkness, there is discovery. You learn that your true strength does not come from what you can see or hear. It comes from what you can feel. I found purpose not by avoiding difficulty, but by embracing it. My blindness taught me vision. My silence taught me the power of words. My isolation taught me the beauty of connection. I used to think I was cursed, but I was not. I was chosen to show the world that limitations exist only in the mind. If you are facing your own adversity, I ask you to look within. Do not curse your challenges. They are your teachers. Do not run from your pain. It is carving you into something extraordinary. You can rise, not because the world makes it easy, but because the spirit within you demands it. You are more than your circumstances. You are the power that transforms them. So rise even in darkness, rise even in silence, and one day you will realize the very things that tried to confine you became the wings that helped you fly.
For 27 years, I lived behind bars. My home was a small cell with a narrow window. But in that confinement, I found a freedom the world could not give. The freedom of the mind. Adversity has a way of testing a person's spirit. Many break under it. But those who endure, they rise not as the same person, but as something stronger, wiser, unshakable. I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Every morning in that prison, I reminded myself, they can take my freedom, but they cannot take my integrity. Forgiveness became my greatest weapon. For hatred is a chain heavier than any prison door. When I walked free, I did not carry vengeance. I carried hope. Because I knew if I allowed bitterness to rule my heart, I would remain imprisoned forever. The world changes, not by anger, but by endurance. When you face oppression, failure, or rejection, do not curse your struggle. It is the fire that purifies the soul. I emerged from that cell, not broken, but reborn. And when I stood before my people, I saw that my suffering had not been in vain. It had prepared me to lead, to serve, and to heal a nation. Your life too will have prisons, invisible ones, pain, loss, fear. But I tell you today, rise, stand firm in your truth. Let no circumstance decide your destiny. It is through adversity that we discover who we truly are and who we are meant to become. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. You will be tested, betrayed, and perhaps forgotten. But you will rise if you choose to. Because adversity does not define you, your response to it does. Rise from pain, rise from doubt, rise from fear. And when you stand tall, remember, freedom is not something given. It is something you become. There was a time when the sound of a cell door closing behind me echoed like the end of my life. 27 years, a lifetime within walls of stone. And yet, those years did not destroy me. They built me. In that small, cold space, I learned what freedom truly meant. It was not the ability to walk freely on the streets. It was the ability to think freely, to forgive freely, to dream freely. They could take away my physical liberty, but they could never imprison my soul. And I realized that true power is not measured by dominance, but by endurance. Every day, I face the temptation of anger, the bitterness of injustice. But I refuse to let hate consume me, because hate chains the soul even more tightly than prison bars. Forgiveness became my revolution. You see, adversity is a teacher disguised as suffering. It strips away comfort and leaves only truth. It asks, who are you when all else is taken? And if you listen, it shows you that strength is not born in triumph, but in perseverance. I watched the sun rise and set through the same window for years. But even behind bars, I imagined a future for my country. I held on to the belief that no suffering is wasted if it awakens purpose. When I walked free, I did not emerge with anger in my heart. I emerged with clarity. I understood that my imprisonment had not destroyed me. It had prepared me to unite, to lead, to forgive. To those who suffer, I say this: adversity will not always make sense while you are in it. But if you hold on long enough, you will see that it was shaping you for something far greater than you imagined. Strength is not in never falling. Strength is in rising each time you do. I fell many times, but I always rose because I believed in something bigger than myself. There will be moments in your life when the walls seem too high, when the pain feels endless, and when hope seems foolish. But even in those moments, rise. Rise because the future needs you to. Rise because your story is not finished. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And those who rise after adversity do not only heal themselves, they become the light for others still lost in the dark. When I was young, I dreamed of a free and equal South Africa, but that dream demanded a price. They called me a criminal for wanting freedom. They locked me behind bars, stripped me of my name, and called me a number. For 27 years, the world moved on without me. I missed the sun on my skin, the laughter of my children, the touch of my wife. Days turned to years, and years into decades. I wondered if the world would ever remember me. But I did not allow bitterness to grow in my heart, because I knew that hatred is a prison far more cruel than iron bars. So I made a choice. I would not be a prisoner of my suffering. I would be a student of it. In that tiny cell, I discovered freedom. Not the freedom of the body, but the freedom of the spirit. I learned that no matter where you are, no one can imprison your mind unless you let them. Forgiveness became my rebellion. Peace became my weapon, and patience my revolution. When I finally walked free, I carried no hatred in my heart, because I knew that to rise after adversity, one must forgive the past without letting it destroy the future. Adversity teaches us that life's hardest moments are not punishment, they are preparations. Each struggle builds a layer of strength. Each loss carves wisdom into our soul. We must remember that the climb to freedom is never without pain. But every step, every scar is proof that we have endured. So when life breaks you, when injustice strikes you down, when pain makes you doubt your purpose, do not surrender. Stand taller. Speak with kindness, even to your enemies. Because the true victory is not to defeat others, but to master yourself. I was once a prisoner, but I became a leader. Not because I was extraordinary, but because I refused to let adversity define me. If you rise, rise not for revenge, but for peace. Rise not for yourself, but for those who still cannot. For when one of us rises, the world rises with us.
Life will test you. It will knock you down, betray your trust, and sometimes make you question your worth. But hear me clearly. You are stronger than you know. I was a young girl when silence became my shelter. Trauma took my voice. But in that silence, I began to listen to the whispers of my own soul. I learned that even when you lose your voice, your spirit still sings. You may encounter defeats, but you must not be defeated. Every time I fell, life whispered, "Rise." And I did, again and again. I wrote my pain. I danced with my fear. I spoke my truth. And through that expression, I discovered freedom. My story was no longer a wound. It became a wing. If you are walking through darkness, remember this. Storms do not last forever. And the rain that falls on you today will water the seeds of your tomorrow. When I said, "Still I rise," it was not poetry. It was a promise to myself and to everyone who has ever been broken. You may bend, but you will not break. Rise with grace, rise with power, rise with love. Because every setback you've endured, every tear you've shed, is shaping you into something divine. When the world tells you you're not enough, stand tall and whisper back, "I am more than enough." And then, rise. There were moments in my life when silence became my home, when pain silenced my voice, when the world told me to sit quietly, to forget what I had seen, to pretend I was not hurt. But inside that silence, something powerful began to grow. The knowing that my story mattered, that no matter how the world tried to silence me, my spirit could still rise. You may encounter defeats, but you must not be defeated. I have known loss, betrayal, and heartbreak, and yet every single time I found my way back to myself. And that is the lesson I wish to give you. Resilience is not something you find. It is something you build. When life pushes you down, rise with dignity. When people doubt your worth, rise with confidence. When the world tells you no, rise anyway, because your yes will come from within. I wrote my pain into poetry. I turned my sorrow into song. And I discovered that the moment you choose to tell your truth, you take your power back. The storms of life do not exist to destroy you. They exist to teach you how to dance in the rain. Each challenge, each tear, each fall, they are the sculptors of your strength. Still, I rise. That was not simply a line of verse. It was a declaration. It meant that no matter what the world took from me, it could not take my will to stand. There is beauty in rising. There is grace in struggle. Every time you get back up, you prove to the universe that you are made of something divine. You will meet days that break you, but they will also make you wiser, kinder, stronger. So don't fear adversity. Embrace it, for it will reveal the part of you that is eternal. Rise, even when it hurts. Rise when you're afraid. Rise for the ones who cannot. Because when you rise, you remind others that they can too. And one day, when you look back, you will realize that the moments that tried to destroy you were the same moments that made you unstoppable. Still, you rise. There were moments when the world broke me, when I felt unseen, unheard, and unworthy. As a child, I knew trauma too soon, and for years I stopped speaking. Because when pain takes your voice, silence becomes your survival. But silence has a strange way of growing heavy. It begins to demand truth. And one day I realized that the world does not get to decide when I will rise. I do. So I began to write. Every word I wrote was a piece of myself returning home. I wrote my sorrow into poetry, my anger into rhythm, my love into song. Through my words, I found my power again. I learned that adversity is not meant to destroy us. It is meant to reveal us. It is the fire that burns away all illusions until only truth remains. I have known poverty. I have known rejection. I have known heartbreak. But I have also known grace. Because every time I fell, I rose a little stronger. Every time I was silenced, my voice came back louder. You see, my dear, life will break you. But the breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming whole. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you rise after it. I wrote these words not as poetry, but as a promise. Still, I rise. It means that even after pain, even after betrayal, even after loss, there is a part of you that will always rise again. You may bend, but you will not break. You may weep, but you will not drown. You may stumble, but you will not stop. Because within you lives something divine, something unshakable, the soul that refuses to give up. I want you to look at your scars not as signs of defeat, but as symbols of survival. They mean you fought. They mean you lived. They mean you rose. And when you rise, you give permission for others to do the same. You teach the world that the human spirit is unstoppable. That no matter how many times it is buried, it will bloom again, stronger, brighter, freer. So rise. Rise from your mistakes. Rise from your heartbreak. Rise from your failures. Rise. Because you are the miracle you've been waiting for. Still, I rise.